under this leadership. And I'll let Scott Nibbins, my Vice President, take over from there.
Well, thank you very much, and I'll try to make this very, very brief. I think what's important and part of the goals, certainly outlined in the agenda here, are what are the respective roles of the individual parties, and what is industry's role in helping produce an effective statewide earthquake warning solution. So, as you see in the slide here, I think what it's important to understand to start with is as a private entity, we approached earthquake warning from a very different perspective. We started this from not only an engineering standpoint, but from the end user standpoint of what are the applications necessary to ensure the technology we're deploying is effective and can benefit the end users and all of the additional benefits that go with that. So we took that knowledge, these years of experience, being in the emergency management sector, the schools, as George has mentioned, and many others, and built on that with what Assemblyman Garcia had referenced, our regional projects in Southern California, to develop a partnership model that was bottoms-up driven and focused on end-user needs. And I think I will make the slides available, and rather than go through them lengthy, let me just play this one clip that was suggested, and then we'll take some questions. If I can get that to play. There we go.
Earthquake country, the Coachella Valley. It's not a question of if, but when. The Coachella Valley Association of Governments has voted unanimously to move ahead with the CREWS project. CREWS, or Coachella Valley Regional Earthquake Warning System, will help protect 80,000 kids and staff in Valley schools. Students need only seconds to get safely under their desks, but with early warning, they'll be safely in place before the shaking begins. Here's how it works. When an earthquake starts, P waves pass through the earth ahead of S waves. These P waves give the early warning system a heads up that the shaking is on its way. The system will then trigger an alarm and other appropriate safety actions. In the case of Palm Springs Fire, which has been using the system for 9 years, the system triggers an audible alarm and automatically opens fire station doors, so vital emergency services are freed up after an earthquake. In this example, an earthquake hits near the Salton Sea. The P waves trigger the nearest sensor, which then sends an alert to the rest of the network. The closest sensor gets 1 second of warning, while the furthest sensor in Desert Hot Springs gets 30 seconds. An average of 20 seconds of warning before an earthquake hits. Plenty of time for kids and staff to get to a safe place to drop cover and hold.
So let me touch on the Napa earthquake as well. As Mr. Dixon pointed out, Napa represents, I think, really what we all need to strive for here. The important point is that automation took place before shaking arrived. That's what industry brings to the table, and it's what we hear from our end users is central to an effective solution at the end of the day. Automation, beating the shaking arriving, and then impacting the residents in a beneficial way. It also points to another way of how, and this has been an issue we've discussed, myself as a member of the working group subcommittees, how do we define the success of an earthquake warning system? Do we define the success of an earthquake warning system that we distributed alert to people at distance? If you look at the graphic in the right, which is the CISN shake alert, we've heard already a lot today about getting notification out to, let's say, San Francisco or even Los Gatos, 20 seconds away. There was no significant shaking in those areas. Earthquake warning will be reputational at the end of the day. How people react have to be automated, and certainly we have addressed very clearly the need for training and appropriate response. So we view the success of an earthquake is the mitigation benefit and the action the end user was able to take at the end of the day. So lastly, we've been doing this a long time, as Mr. Dixon said. We're applying earthquake warning. We're very focused. Related to the questions that were raised a few minutes ago, seismic warning systems looks at earthquake warning very differently. We were focused on what is the impact of that shaking going to be on a particular facility at a particular point. that meant that the sensor arrays and the type of information that we're looking at wasn't exactly what the academics necessarily needed. It's what the end user needed. We're focused on magnitude, not magnitude, but intensity and shaking. And we can provide much deeper science discussion later since we have gone way, way over. Lastly, we really have a tremendous amount of end user experience, really learning from our customers what is the best way to apply the new tool, as our fire chief friends that we've worked with for many years tell us, a new tool in the toolbox. So thank you again very, very much, and we're happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. At this time, we're going to keep moving along the panel, and we'll go ahead and take the questions for the members at the end of the discussion. Please introduce yourself and continue with your presentation.
Josh Basham, founder of Early Warning Labs. Early Warning Labs is a tech company located in Santa Monica, California, and is a proud research and development partner with the USGS. Our current research and development focus is on the commercialization of the EarthQuake early warning alert delivery and subsequent response automation based off of the data provided by the USGS and their university partners, including Caltech, Berkeley, and the University of Washington. So what we've developed is a very unique cloud server mass notification platform. We built it to be extremely secure, redundant, and scalable. We focus on two sides, both the commercial hardware and alert delivery side, and also on the consumer side. We've developed an iOS smartphone app that we plan to release for free for any user that wants to download it. We've also worked on developing a consumer device that interacts with the app that's similar to a smoke alarm that would be installed in consumers' homes and possibly small businesses. Another big focus that actually we're concentrating on is the mass notification and automation hardware that connects directly to our cloud server infrastructure. And that cloud server infrastructure relies on the USGS data. So we developed software and hardware to work with any new or existing system. So we can interface with any existing 2A radio system that's out there, whether it's at a private company or at a fire station or even military radios. We're one of the very small number of companies that actually can integrate into those proprietary systems. I'll show you one that we've integrated with here in just a minute. The hardware interfaces with any existing alerting system, whether it's sirens or a loudspeaker inside of a venue just like this. And we can also automate anything that has a on-off switch or a contact closure. We can connect directly with our system. The system is very easy to provision. Think of it as like an Apple interface. It's a dashboard that the users will able to go in and set thresholds for the earthquake. So if they want a certain action to happen over intensity 5, they set those thresholds, make the connections. It's very simple, very easy to use. So our first beta case study, which is also a beta user of the Shake Alert system, is NBC Universal and the Universal Studios property over in Universal Studios, in Universal City, Los Angeles. The phase 1, we're also opening fire station doors automatically in the fire station. It's LA County Fire Station 51. We integrated with their proprietary Motorola 2A radio system, so we can do mass notification of these alerts over their existing Motorola communication system. We play alerts over the PA system for the security, which is the existing speakers that are inside of their office, and also over the PA system in the fire station to notify the personnel to pull the trucks out. Phase 2, which we're actually already moving forward on, we're looking at safely shutting down the rides or putting them into a safe position to prevent any type of derailment or deaths for that matter. Working on utility shutoffs, whether it's gas or electricity in high-risk areas. Working on turning on their emergency power automatically. Our hardware already does this. There's another project which we're working on that right now. Taking elevators, the nearest floor. integrating with their dispatch console, which is another system that's used widely for police fire in the state of California, and also doing a more advanced mobile SMS alert with their current provider, Everbridge. This goes into a little bit more detail about LA County Fire Station 51 that we did at NBC Universal Studios. That fire station is actually on site in Universal Studios. It responds to the surrounding area and emergencies that are inside of the property itself. The hardware was just over at LA County ISD being bench tested and approved for use in the other fire stations. So we're looking to roll out the same system that we have at LA County Fire Station 51 to the other fire stations. We're also working on a project with LA Metro. It's a very exciting project. We're doing a small pilot installation at the Rail Operations Center over in Watts. We're working directly with Mitsubishi to recall the elevator to the closest floor in the event of an earthquake. We're also going to do alerting over their two-way radio system. That's an ICOM system to show you we can integrate with really any radio manufacturer. This is a completely different system that's at NBC. We're automatically turning over their generator, so they have no lapse in power loss at their rail operations center. And we're also working to deeply integrate with their dispatch integration system. So that will allow them to automatically turn on ventilation fans in tunnels, slow down their trains, or do any numerous types of response actions that they want to do. And just to sort of wrap up what I said is, we're really excited to be one of those private partners with the USGS and Caltech, Berkeley, and the University of Washington. We're confident that what I like to call a wide area network of sensors that's already existing and is, throughout California and the United States for that matter, is really the right answer to get the most warning time possible. Because really, it's lives at stake, and that's what our core focus is to implement these automated solutions. We're working. I wanted to keep it under 5 minutes, but we're working with a bunch of other organizations, some hospitals in LA, some schools, to really mitigate the loss of life and help both the fire departments and also private industry mitigate that monetary loss they experience in an earthquake and also prevent the loss of life. So I really appreciate your guys' time.
Thank you.
Chairman Hall, Chairman Gray, members, Steve Carlson. I'm California Government Affairs Counsel for CTIA, the Wireless Association. We are the international trade association for the wireless industry. Carriers, equipment providers, Apple, Motorola, operating systems, Google, Microsoft, et cetera. Appreciate the opportunity today to share with you today the work the wireless industry is already doing to determine how it might possibly integrate into such an earthquake early warning system. And to strongly urge and respectfully suggest that at the very earliest stages of design, development, and operations, that the wireless industry needs to be brought into these conversations. You've heard a number of speakers discuss how smartphones could well be an important adjunct to the system, and we are certainly offering ourselves and strongly suggesting that we be brought in at the very early stages of this. On behalf of the wireless industry, Mr. Peter White, Executive Director of Global Public Policy, I always like the global part of that. It really makes him sound, and he is a smart guy too, is going to talk in a little bit more detail about some of the things the wireless industry is doing and can be doing as part of this process. Mr. White.
Thank you, Steve. Chairman Gray, Chairman Hall, I promise I won't speak too globally or too long today. And members of the Joint Committee, thank you each for your time and the opportunity to speak today. On behalf of the industry, we want to assure you that we are in support of an early warning earthquake system here in California. Let me give you the bottom line up front, 3 key points that I'd like you to walk away with after listening to our remarks today. Number one, we believe that creating that earthquake early warning system here in California, as all the other witnesses have said, is an incredibly important goal, and we look forward to working with all the stakeholders in achieving that goal. Our focus, frankly, is on the system that gets created being able to work from end to end, from the first detection of that P wave all the way to the last mother or teenager or whoever holding that cellular phone getting that notification. End-to-end reliability is what we're focused on, and that's why we think being involved with all the other stakeholders starting today, going forward, on all issues substantively of technology, of cost, and especially on public education, and keeping those expectations synced up with the reality of the progress that everyone is making is absolutely essential. Toward that end, the wireless industry last year engaged the Alliance for Telecommunications Industry Solutions to develop standards to support the objective and make sure that what gets done at the back end, at the delivery of these messages through the wireless industry's network, actually does get in the hands of the people who can use that information and in those hands quickly enough so that they can do so. The industry had the privilege of briefing Senator Padilla regarding how an earthquake early warning system might work from a telecommunications perspective back when that bill, SB 135, was being introduced. We continue to work collaboratively and constructively with all the stakeholders. I want to briefly talk about what ADIS is looking at and why that's important. First off, the issue of standards. The bottom line is, if you're talking about an end-to-end reliable system, you have to make sure that all of the component pieces can talk to each other and do so effectively. If there's a break in the chain, logically enough, that message is not going to get through. And when you're talking about a period of time from anywhere from 20 seconds to 1 minute, you don't have a lot of time. With ADIS, when ADIS is complete with their report, which should be sometime in the second quarter of this year, we'd like the opportunity to come back to brief members of the governor's staff, and any other stakeholder on what ADIS findings are, what the recommendations are, and use that as a significant way of moving forward. Let me give you a couple advisories on the current state of play within the wireless industry. Right now, our existing commercial wireless networks are not scaled to provide an early earthquake warning system alert and support those additional messages. You heard several speakers talk about several dozen beta users. Well, there are 36.4 million wireless users in California, and that's a big gap in scale in terms of network load. So I want everybody's expectations to be set along the lines of our networks need to be able to haul this traffic. In addition, the wireless emergency alert systems that the industry, the federal government, state, local, tribal stakeholders have worked on for the last decade, and which became operational about 3 years ago, is available for both post-alert relief information and potentially during the aftershock phase of a seismic event. But the cycle time for a wireless emergency alert is in minutes, not in tens of seconds to 1 minute, as Dr. Allen pointed out is the hard limit. So that's a tool that exists for the aftermath, but not really for the front end of the disaster. Finally, the system that was discussed briefly in Japan was purpose-built, and that means that where wireless handset functionalities were created and deployed, as were network functionalities were created and deployed. That's why ADIS is looking at Japan and other areas in seismically active parts of the globe to make sure that we take advantage of all the lessons learned there. I'll leave with a couple of recommendations or suggestions for action that California government and other stakeholders can take today. The first is, again, make sure that the wireless industry stays engaged with all the processes that are in place with OES and the rest of the developmental pieces in this large puzzle. Secondly, make sure that existing wireless emergency warning tools that do exist now for the post-quake aftermath are available to local and state stakeholders. Right now, wireless emergency alerts are available through several California governmental organizations, but it's not fully deployed, and that's something you may want to go and check on in your own district, the status of wireless emergency alerts in your home districts. Finally, public education is essential. I don't think you can begin early enough in keeping people's expectations in line with the performance expectations, and I think that's something our fellow witnesses today would share in. We want to make sure the public knows what's available, what's coming, and what they should do when they get one of these warnings. So with that very abbreviated set of remarks. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today.
Thank you very much. And Barry Anderson?
Yeah, excellent. Well, we appreciate the opportunity to speak before the committee today. We've been told it's not a matter of if, but when. And there's not a lot of lead time here. So really our emergency preparedness approach really relies on speed. And it's speed to restore and secure the gas and electric system. And really technology is becoming a bigger and bigger player in those preparedness capabilities. Every time there's an earthquake above a magnitude 3 in our service territory, a real-time damage model runs that gives us real visibility into damage and the amount of resources that are required. This worked for Napa. And so our view is early warning seismic even gets further upstream, even though it could be only up to a minute or tens of seconds. It can provide the needed notification systems and enable our models to start running, prior to any disruption to any of the infrastructure. There are also other opportunities that have been mentioned today that are a little bit more commercial in regards to controlling certain valves or other breakers on our system, controlling elevators and other things. So while it may be at times where 30 seconds of warning doesn't seem that significant, to our employees that are out in the field that may be ready to become a loft in a bucket truck, it means something to them. So we really have been pursuing the system through pilots with the Shake Alert with UC Berkeley and also with a couple of the commercial providers here. So really overall we see early warning seismic as a key technology and a big part in our company to become safer and better prepared.
Senator Hill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the participation today. This is a question really for the to seismic warning systems and early warning labs, and your companies have been doing a lot of work in this area and arena. We did hear earlier that I guess your systems and your sensors are proprietary, and your information is you keep confidential as to the effort that comes from that. Yours are, you're for-profit companies. You charge people to be on the rolls to get the notifications, which is fair game and certainly part of it. But our obligation is to the citizens of California and want to make sure that those who can't afford it, everyone should have the availability of this with no charge and no payment. So are you, and I know you mentioned you've been working with the Office of Emergency Services, but how are you going to work with them and coordinate those efforts, as I've just mentioned, related to everyone being part of this solution? And do you want to coordinate in that way and provide some success and that coordinated outcome at the end?
Well, first of all, we absolutely want to do that. There's no doubt about it. That's why we've been working, like I said earlier, for almost about 14 years now with state agencies. And again, under the leadership of Mark Ghilarducci, we have been in the working groups, working with all the partners. We have helped guide and direct, because we built the public-private partnership model 7 years ago. This isn't something that happened yesterday. We have systems that are actually reacting faster than anybody else in the world. We're beating the damaging waves to the surface. So therefore, there's no blind zone. If you look at the other systems around the world, including the prototypes, their own published information says they have blind zones. And that's where the most dangerous part of this is. So the system that we're trying to work with at the state is to make it reliable and functionable to the point where it absolutely works 99.9% of the time. And at the same time, I think we all know that there's nothing for free. I mean, you can't have something for free and have it sustainable. I think the governor and SB 135 says you need to create jobs. You need to work together, make it sustainable, and help protect America's infrastructure and right now our limited resources. So water, things like that. We've been shutting actuator valves down. We speak to any machine language in the world. So we're in Lawrence Berkeley National Labs. We've been there for 7 years, protecting 7,000 people there. So, and it's done its job a couple times when it needed to, and it should. So our goal is to work with the state and do whatever we possibly can, but to also keep a viable market alive out there that also says that this works. It's done in a way that people will trust and believe in it. Because in our society, unlike Japan, and I've worked there many years ago, if you have a false positive several times, people are going to say it's snake oil. And then if they stub their toe or trip and fall on themselves, they're going to sue people for it. We have a litigious society, unlike Japan. This system's got a lot of areas that need to be worked out. So we're working together with our experience and to give every bit of that experience to Director Ghilarducci, the governor, and to the state of California.
Senator Hill, if I may, as well.
Thank you for meeting with me last year as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you as well. And there are two parts to your question as well, which is really the responsibility of government and public alert and notification. And one of the things actually we've been contributing in this process is sort of bifurcating the public alert and the responsibility that may bestow on Cal OES and others to distribute a free alert and warning, something we support wholeheartedly. The other part is the model and sort of what the regional public-private partnerships represented. And this was a bottoms-up driven solution, meaning that local governments, local end users, could not afford the commercial system, like you said, that we may be outselling to the marketplace, and keep it sustainable. So what the model represented, and it's in the slide as well, was the fact that private industry was taking on the cost of deploying a network regionally, and that the regional partners then subscribed to the warning system for a set period of time, and then there was ongoing subsidies to those public beneficiaries. The entire goal here was to ensure that not only was warning getting effectively delivered to those at most need, at least from a local perspective, initially being schools and fire stations, but they could do so without the need for ongoing government funding, which especially when we launched these projects in 2009 was very questionable at best. So the important here was that the true nature of the financial model that was set up was that it would cost actually nothing ongoing to those public beneficiaries, and that private industry was stepping up and collaborating to ensure the technology could get deployed.
Okay, and to touch on your question, what we have with the USGS is a CRADA. It's a Cooperative Research and Development Agreement. So everything that we develop, we actually share with the scientific community and the U.S. government. We are required to provide a license to them to also use that technology. And that's why we aligned our goals to develop this iOS app to give away for free, right? We'll make our money in the private industry selling these solutions to big companies. That's where the value add is important, and that's where a higher level of alerting and automation is required. Again, this app we've developed works on the existing system. I mean, we can actually push out a few million earthquake early warning alerts in a quarter of a second using the existing infrastructure that's out there. And that's huge. We're a tech company, and that's our focus, is being innovative, low-cost solutions for users, and we're applying that in the commercial sector as well. So, sharing our findings, and think of it as a good buzzword is open source. Sharing our findings with the community and other private partners is really going to help make it competitive and offer other solutions, not just ours, in the marketplace. And that's what helps keeps the cost low. So we're really excited, to move forward and continue to develop these systems and new technologies and share that with the community.
So, what happens when you find an individual, a senior citizen, without a cell phone? Right? How are they notified? And what is the damage that we will endure as a result of that?
And that's a great question. And that's why getting other private partners like AT&T involved being able to integrate our system with the reverse 911 systems and helping reduce that latency and getting those alerts delivered. We have API solutions. It's another buzzword, and that allows other users to use our cloud server infrastructure to help deliver those alerts in a low-cost way. And in some cases, whether it is, that community that doesn't have cell phones, or it's, public schools, helping deliver those alerts for low cost or free of cost is another big one of our goals. So, we'd have to work with other private partners to be able to get those alerts to those people that don't have access to smartphones. And that is a challenge that's out there, and we're really excited to address that.